when we start dividing the world and ourselves up into pieces, then it makes sense to start creating a hierarchy out of those pieces. Because if I've got power, guess what? I want to keep it. And so I will do whatever it takes, including violence to myself, to others, to the earth, in order to sustain my power.
Often the questions that come to our mind are more along the lines of what can I do to improve my stock portfolio, the value of my investments, get a promotion at work, position myself in my community somewhere. So it's, as you say, a lot about me.
How can we make life more wonderful? Not just my life, because if I'm making my life more wonderful at your expense, there is an expense to me.
There's an irony here, Randolph, that is I'd like to expose. The human mind is designed to meet more needs with less cost if we learn how to cooperate with it.
How can we combine our intelligences to keep moving forward in a positive way?
That the idea of learning together, being in it together, and keep moving forward in a positive way, it seems so precious. You know, how do we stay open? And kind of heard you say, and non-judgmental when other people do things that are curious. So I'd like to talk a little bit about climate change protests, things that are going on in the world. People assemble, they write, write posters, they whatever, they march. And your work, I understand, brings you into a lot of conflict negotiation situations, and you work with people in these situations. So I'd like to maybe hear your thoughts about when it comes to what I'm calling protests, eco-protests. How effective do you think they are? Any guidance you could share or thoughts you could share?
You asked about the effectiveness of protest, and of course it's effective. And all government, all leadership is by consent. And you have maybe, I don't know, 50 leaders, and then you got 1 million people in the city or whatever. But so the 50 continue to lead by the consent of the other million. And if their needs are not being met, people are going to express it. And protest is the way that they express their needs. Now we have choice about how we protest. Yeah. We can protest violently and through bloodshed and so forth, and that tends to create more repression. Or we can learn to protest nonviolently, where and I'm certainly no expert. There's plenty of experts that know a lot more about it than me, but there are lots of techniques for nonviolent protest. Martin Luther King, of course, a great inspiration, and Mahatma Gandhi. And there's a guy named Gene Sharp who wrote a wonderful book about how to do nonviolent protest. And so other piece where nonviolent communication can help with in the protest world is these protests have to be organized. And organization requires people working together in partnership. That's what NBC is designed to do, is to support people in collaboration and cooperation. And we've done a remarkable amount of work with churches and peace groups who have so much conflict on their boards that they're so distracted by their own conflict that they're not able to fulfill their mission. And so we help these groups to learn how to communicate with one another better and to be more needs focused rather than strategy focused. And then from that needs focus, then they can develop strategies that everybody is in alignment with, that can actually move the mission forward. Does that make sense?
And I wanted to add a piece around protest often means I'm saying no to you. This is not okay. Right. And if we stop there, and yes, I can get that this isn't working, but what would work? Yeah. And really open up to how can we actually deal with this instead of just fight back. So it's about creating teamwork and collaboration and the work of nonviolent communication is often for us to see each other's humanity. So we see that we share the same needs, and even just that piece alone can set the platform for us to see each other's humanity and then to move forward together. Really get we're in it together.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, the sense of shared humanity and the fact we're in it together. And to not demonize people who may have a different perspective.
Right.
Right. We demonize them, they become our enemy. We're busy putting our energy into that kind of negativity. We're really reinforcing their negativity. And we're using all this life energy
Right.
that we need to move forward instead of to be stuck fighting with each other.
So, a couple of thoughts. The word accountability comes to mind. Why? Because I feel like there's 7.5 billion of us on the planet, and so many of us seem to think that healing the earth is it's not my problem. It's somebody else's problem. It's the government. It's the business. It's the mayor. It's my neighbor. But I see many people sort of say, yes, I recognize the problem, but I'm not really responsible or accountable for it. And at the same time, I feel that we all have responsibility and accountability. And then I'm trying to connect that to what you're saying about, my needs and the needs of other people. I mean, it sounds like we need to be really clear on what's important to us and own what's important to us and what our needs are.
Yeah. When we say, oh, yeah, they'll take care of it, we're actually giving up our own power. And not only are we giving up our own power, but we are actually it's what we're not giving. We're not giving our wisdom. And the puzzles that we're dealing with right now and that we have for so long require all the capacity that we have. So if we turn our back, one, we lose our voice, so we may not have choice. And two, our voice is missing for everybody else also. So that I see things that you don't see. I see what's behind you. You don't know what's behind you. Of course, we're on a screen where we can see our videos, but that's not usual. And unless I look up at my video, I can't see what's behind me. So we have each other's back and we have different perspectives. And it's so important that we bring all those perspectives together in a cooperative way. Then we can move mountains. Not that I want to, I like them where they are, but I like that saying.
That's hilarious. In the old paradigm, responsibility usually has, or accountability has to do with blame. Whose fault is it?
Right.
And that's coming from that framework of good and bad and right and wrong and who deserves to be punished and who deserves to be rewarded and so forth. In the new paradigm, responsibility refers to the ability to respond. What can I do right now to contribute to needs? That's the question that can drive us. So it's not either me or my neighbor, or either me or my mayor, or either me or my leaders. It's what can we do? What can I do? And then what can I also do to make requests of those who are in power? That we might be able to generate some sort of new kind of idea by facilitating a community focus group where maybe there's a problem in one community with pollution of a river or something like that. And so we get everybody together and learn from each other and talk about it. And then rather than make it the fault of whoever's doing the pollution, we figure out what can we do about it, rather than to deal with the past and who did something wrong, we deal with from now on, what can we do to heal?
And share that enlightenment that, throwing your garbage into the river isn't really working for you either, even though it appears that way.
Marshall tells this great story that kind of illustrates NVC ideas about social change. That a man is out on a walk by the river, and he notices a baby floating down the river. And so, of course, he goes into the water and rescues the baby. And he's like trying to figure out, now what do I do? And then he turns around and there's another baby floating down the river. So he puts this one baby down and he goes and he starts getting this other baby. He pulls that baby out of the river, and then another baby going down the river. So he can spend his whole life pulling babies out of the river. Or he could say, where are these babies coming from, man? And start moving upstream and figuring out how these babies are getting put into the river and address it there.
The systemic problem, not just the outcome.
Well, I hear so much hope and really sense of hope having this conversation with you, that we do have a collective wisdom and we can tap into it, and there is creativity in our hearts, and we are in it together. So there's a lot of reasons for hope there, and I appreciate so much what you're sharing. In your opinion, what will inspire and motivate people at the individual level to live differently? To live more eco-sustainably or more compassionate toward the earth? What's going to really motivate and inspire us?
What I noticed in my own experience, I don't know what would work for other people, but there are two things that motivate me. One is pleasure and the other is pain.
It's pretty clear.
And so in terms of working with environmental issues or something like that, pain shows up as despair.
Okay.
Right? We feel the despair of maybe seeing videos of animals stuck in oil slicks, or God knows, what you've seen, these terrible, terrible images, and that stimulates despair. Well, despair is a fantastic motivator. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. So that pain motivates us to find solutions. The other motivator is gratitude. That's pleasure, to see that, when I'm eating this papaya that came from the garden, and I know that I didn't put anything other than natural compost on it to fertilize it. There's no pesticides on it. It's the same way that papayas have been around ever since there's been papayas, with no artificial things added other than stuff that just might be in the air. And I just enjoy the taste of that papaya, and I savor it. And I see in that moment of savoring, I have the direct experience that papaya is me. And that papaya is becoming me. And that pleasure motivates me to get back out there and weed around the papaya tree and turn those weeds into compost, so that there's more papayas to give away to my neighbors.
I'm going to come and live with you in Hawaii and help you work on those papayas. Spend time in nature with you.